The waiter asked if we wanted dessert. Before I could answer, the man across from me leaned back in his chair, fingers wrapped lazily around a glass of sparkling water, and said, "She used to call me husband before she met you." He said it without blinking, without raising his voice, like he was reading off the specials menu. Mary Beth didn't deny it. She didn't say a word. She just sat there, breathing like she'd been underwater too long. This wasn't how dinner was supposed to go. We had been halfway through a plate of grilled trout and awkward small talk when he appeared. Not from the front entrance, not from the kitchen. No, he came from the staff hallway, like he worked there. He wasn't even seated. He just appeared, pulled up a chair at our table, and said, "Hope I'm not too late." And no one, not the hostess, not the manager, not even Mary Beth, told him to leave. He was in his mid-40s, salt and pepper hair, a faded navy coat like he had somewhere better to be but chose to be here. And around his neck, on a thin black cord, hung a gold ring. A wedding ring. Her wedding ring. The one she claimed she'd lost at a beach 2 years ago on our honeymoon. I thought she was crying that day. She swore the tide pulled it away. We searched for hours. She made me promise not to be mad. I wasn't. I bought her a new one 2 weeks later. And now, this man wears it like a medal. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My tongue felt like it didn't belong in my mouth anymore. Then he reached across the table. Yes, across me. Picked up Mary Beth's hand, and slowly turned her palm upward. He whispered something into it. And she smiled. Not a warm smile. Not a nervous one either. A cold, crooked smile. Like someone who had just found the right puzzle piece they'd been hiding in their sleeve. The man's eyes flicked to me for the first time. "You always did trust too easily." I should have flipped the table. I should have walked out. I should have done something. But instead, I stared at that gold ring on his chest, gently swinging back and forth. Like a pendulum, counting down to something I didn't understand yet. The restaurant kept playing that soft jazz piano loop, the kind designed to keep people from noticing when their life explodes in public. But I noticed. I noticed everything. The way the air turned heavier. The way my wife avoided looking at me. The way his hand never left the surface of the table, like he was daring me to reach for it. I finally asked, "What is this?" Not in a tough, demanding way. More like a kid asking if monsters are real. Mary Beth didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her purse, the same burgundy clutch she's carried for years, and slowly pulled out a small, glossy, dark green card. At first I thought it was a credit card, but then I saw the logo. Belmere Suites. Room 409. I know that hotel. Everyone in town knows that hotel. It's not somewhere you stay, it's somewhere you sneak. She slid it across the table toward him. Not toward me. He picked it up, smiled like it was a love note, and tucked it into his jacket pocket. Then he said, with a casual shrug, "I told her to keep it somewhere I wouldn't lose it." And that was when I finally saw it. The guilt was gone. It had been there before, at least some sliver of shame in her eyes. But now, she looked light, unburdened, like the lie she'd been dragging around had finally dropped from her shoulders and crushed me instead. I asked again, but this time quieter, "What is this?" Mary Beth exhaled through her nose like she was tired. Then she said something I'll never forget, and probably never forgive. "It's not what you think, Leland. But it's also not what you think." That sentence hit me like cold water down the spine. Not what I think. Not what I think. What the hell kind of answer is that? I could feel my ears burning. My fingers had curled into fists around the napkin in my lap. I hadn't even realized it. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to cry either. But I could feel both coming. The man, he still hadn't told me his name, leaned forward like we were about to have a secret little chat, and said, "If it makes you feel better, it started before you were married. So technically, she cheated on me first." Mary Beth flinched. Finally, a crack in her armor. But he kept going. I always knew she'd get tired of pretending. That white picket life, that wasn't her. Not really. I knew she'd come back. I looked at her, waiting for her to deny it. Waiting for her to push the hotel key across the table to me and say it was all a mistake. But she didn't. She said, "I didn't plan for this to happen. Not like this." I laughed. It came out dry and ugly. "So how was it supposed to happen, Mary Beth? I just find your toothbrush missing one day? A note on the fridge? What was the plan?" She opened her mouth like she was about to answer, then closed it. Silence. That's when the waiter came by again, smiling like nothing was wrong in the world, and asked, "Dessert?" I said yes. Because I needed to see what betrayal tastes like when it's covered in whipped cream and costs $14. The creme brulee arrived before either of us could say another word. It sat between the three of us like an awkward guest, caramelized sugar glistening under the candlelight, tiny silver spoon perched delicately on the plate. It would have been the highlight of the night under any other circumstance. But in that moment, it felt more like a cruel joke. A sweet, mocking monument to everything I didn't know. I was still trying to breathe through what I'd just seen. The hotel key, the wedding ring around his neck, the way she looked at him like I was the footnote. When the man, still calm as ever, leaned back and said something that made my stomach knot up in a way I can't fully explain. "How's your mom, Leland Everett?" I hadn't heard my full name said out loud in years. Especially not my middle name. No one uses it. Not at work, not even my mom. Mary Beth didn't even put it in our wedding vows. I always hated it. Everett sounded too formal, too polished for someone like me. But hearing it come out of this stranger's mouth, it was like being slapped with a childhood photo. He said it like he owned it, like he had read it 100 times, like he had said it to her. I blinked. "How do you know that?" Mary Beth froze. Not dramatically, no gasps, no wide eyes, just a subtle pause, like someone who hears their ringtone in a quiet church. Then she muttered, "I told him. A long time ago." It came up. A long time ago burned more than it should have, because it wasn't the kind of detail you just happen to share in passing. This was something she'd once laughed at when I told her how I used to hide it on forms in school. And now this man, this walking nightmare in a thrift store jacket, was casually pulling it out of his memory like it was nothing. The silence thickened. I could hear clinking glasses and soft conversation at the other tables, normal people living normal lives. Meanwhile, I was stuck in this emotional hostage situation, wondering how long this had been going on, how much of my life had been lived in the wrong story. Then he said something that made everything worse. So much worse. "She told me about your panic attacks. The one you had in the elevator in Atlanta? That story broke my heart." I pushed my chair back, not because I was leaving, I had nowhere to go, but because I suddenly felt naked. That story. I told Mary Beth that one night after my dad's funeral. I had never told anyone else. Not even my therapist. It wasn't funny. It wasn't romantic. It was embarrassing, pathetic even. I was 27, stuck in an elevator between floors, hyperventilating like a child, clutching my briefcase like a life raft. And she told him. Mary Beth finally said something. Her voice was soft, but firm. "Leland, I didn't mean for this to happen here. I thought we'd have more time." "More time for what?" I snapped. "To let me keep paying for your Netflix while you rehearse your exit?" Her face twisted, not in anger, but guilt. That's when I realized she wasn't cruel. Not really. She was just finished. Like someone who had already packed their bags emotionally and was just waiting for the cab to arrive. The man, clearly not a fan of awkward silences, reached for the creme brulee and cracked the sugar shell with the back of his spoon. "You guys really should try this. Life's short." And I lost it. Not loudly. Not in a dramatic flip-the-table kind of way. I just started laughing. Quiet, helpless, exhausted laughter. Because the man who just hijacked my marriage and stole my wife's secrets was now sharing dessert at our table like we were in some twisted sitcom. I didn't know what was real anymore. My wife, the woman I'd built a life with, was sitting across from me, sharing a hotel key, a past, and apparently my middle name with someone who treated me like I was the plus one. And deep down, the worst part? I knew this was only the beginning. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't hit you like a slap. Not really. It creeps in. It spreads. It stains everything it touches. That night, sitting there at that stupid candlelit table with a half-eaten creme brulee between us and a stranger chewing the story of my marriage like it was his appetizer, I realized that nothing I remembered was safe anymore. I didn't ask questions for a while. I didn't even look at them. I just watched the flame in the little wax candle flicker while my brain tried to reorganize the timeline of my life. And it kept looping back to one thing, one weekend, that suddenly didn't make sense anymore. 2 months ago, I had surprised Mary Beth with a staycation. I booked us a suite at the Belmere. Same hotel. I thought it would be fun. Something spontaneous. She reacted weirdly. First, she said she had a migraine. Then she said she had a deadline. She begged me to cancel it. She even cried. I canceled it. Like a good husband. I held her while she cried. I told her we'd do it another time. But what I didn't know, not until tonight, was that the hotel manager had called me back later that week to confirm our second booking, one I hadn't made. I thought it was a mistake. Someone with the same last name, maybe. The manager apologized and said it was taken care of. I never told Mary Beth about it. Why would I? It felt like one of those dumb mix-ups you forget 5 minutes later. Now it wasn't a mix-up. Now I knew. She had booked the same room, same suite. A week later, without me. I suddenly blurted it out, not thinking, not planning, just needing to hear it said aloud. Did you book that room twice? Mary Beth flinched. The man paused, spoon halfway to his mouth. She opened her mouth, closed it, and then said, Leland, please. No, no, no. Don't Leland me. You cried in my arms. You told me you were sick. You made me cancel, so you could take him instead? Her silence was a confession. But he just smiled like I had finally caught up to a joke everyone else already knew. You really didn't check the billing statement? He asked, eyebrows raised like he couldn't believe I was this stupid. And that's when it hit me. I did check it. She told me she'd bought new towels. She even showed me photos, soft, Egyptian cotton ones in weird beige colors. I complimented them. I remember thinking how thoughtful it was that she wanted our guest bathroom to feel more hotel-like. She literally used the hotel to explain away the hotel. The genius of it made me nauseous. And the man, still nameless, still maddeningly calm, tapped the table twice with his ring finger and said, She always liked room 409. Corner unit. Big windows. I told her not to go back there with you. It would have ruined the memory. That's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. This wasn't a reunion. This wasn't some long-lost ex crawling out of the shadows to steal back the woman he never got over. This was a partnership, a system, something that had been running in the background of my life like a virus I never knew was there. And I had funded it, protected it, defended it. I turned to Mary Beth. My voice cracked, but I didn't care anymore. Why? Not how long. Just why. I needed one answer that wasn't wrapped in a half-lie or some poetic apology. I needed the ugly version. She stared at me for a long time. And then, in a voice I barely recognized, she said, Because you always loved me more than I loved you. And I got tired of pretending that was enough. It should have crushed me. It did. But weirdly, it also freed me. Because for the first time that night, I realized something simple and devastating. She hadn't betrayed a perfect marriage. She had betrayed my delusion of one. I didn't follow them out of the restaurant. I couldn't move. I just sat there, staring at the empty dessert plate like it could somehow explain any of this. The spoon was still resting against the edge of the dish, smeared with melted sugar and her lipstick. A single red print, clear as a stamp, like she'd left behind her signature after breaking whatever was left of me. They walked out together, not holding hands, not touching, nothing romantic, just quietly, like people who'd finished a job and were heading home. She didn't even glance back. That part, for some reason, stung the worst. I had always imagined that even if things ended, she'd at least look back. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually a different waiter came over, someone I hadn't seen before, and politely asked if I needed anything else. I was about to say no when something in me shifted. Something quiet, small, but insistent. Could you tell me whose name the reservation was under? I asked. He gave me a polite smile, like I was confused. Of course. Let me check the system. A few minutes later, he came back with a small receipt slip and placed it gently in front of me. My heart was already pounding as I turned it over and saw the name printed in bold at the top. Dr. Marcus B. Whitaker. I froze. Not because I recognized the name. I didn't. But because of the title. Doctor? She told me he was an old friend. She said he was in construction once. A contractor. Back when she and I were redoing our kitchen, she claimed to have consulted him for ideas. That's how she introduced his name. I barely remembered it at the time. Just another guy she knew from before. No alarms, no suspicions. But now I'm sitting here realizing she's been feeding me fiction. So I Googled him. Right there at the table, hands shaking so hard I almost dropped my phone. Marcus B. Whitaker, licensed psychiatrist. Published. Well-reviewed. He had a photo, clean cut, same guy, standing beside a university banner at some conference. Author of 3 books. One of them was called The Myth of Monogamy, Evolution and Emotional Fidelity. I swear I nearly laughed when I read that title. But what really wrecked me? His clinic's address. It was located exactly 2 blocks from Mary Beth's office. Not on the same street. Not even on her route home. But close enough. Close enough to walk. To drop in. To have lunches I thought were with coworkers. And there it was, suddenly so obvious I could barely breathe. She didn't meet him randomly. She didn't run into him at some reunion. He'd never left. He had always been there. Orbiting. Hiding in plain sight like a shadow I didn't bother to notice. For years. That night, I drove home in silence. I didn't play the radio. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. My hands just gripped the wheel until they cramped. Every stoplight felt like a test of willpower. I didn't want to walk into the house we built. I didn't want to see her shoes by the door or the plant she always forgot to water. But I didn't want to be anywhere else either. When I finally stepped inside, everything looked exactly the same. Except for one thing. On the hallway table, next to the bowl where we kept our keys, was a sealed white envelope. My name written on it in her handwriting. Carefully. Lovingly. Like a note you'd leave before boarding a plane. I didn't open it. Not yet. Because before I could take another step, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. Just barely visible inside the key bowl, half buried under my spare car fob. A second hotel key card. Room 410. Different room. Booked in my name. And that's when it hit me. Whatever was happening here, it wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't touch it for hours. The envelope sat there on the console table like it was breathing, like it might whisper something if I got close enough. Her handwriting was unmistakable. Every letter shaped perfectly, curved the way she used to write grocery lists or anniversary cards. I hated how beautiful it looked. How clean. Like she had practiced it. Like she wanted her final message to be aesthetically pleasing even as it set my life on fire. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just kept pacing. I made coffee at 2:30 a.m. and didn't drink it. I opened the fridge 6 times like betrayal might be hiding behind the milk. The second hotel key sat on the kitchen counter, staring at me. Room 410. It made no sense. She'd been in 409 with him. Why book the room next door, in my name? What was that? A decoy? A trap? A message? By 4 a.m. I gave up trying to think my way through it and sat down at the dining table with the envelope. I didn't open it. But as I picked it up, I noticed something strange. The flap wasn't glued shut. It had been tucked in, not sealed. Like she wanted me to find it, but didn't want to force it on me. Like it was bait, not closure. I took a breath, unfolded the flap, and pulled out a single sheet of heavy paper. No greeting. No, dear Leland. No, I'm sorry. Just a short, tidy note, typed. Not even handwritten, with the kind of detachment that felt surgical. You were always safe. You never asked for anything more. That's why I stayed. But it's also why I had to leave. Room 410 isn't what you think. Go there. Alone. That was it. 12 words. No explanation. No signature. I read it a dozen times, searching for something between the lines. A code. A hidden message. Some clue to tell me this wasn't all just insanity layered on top of heartbreak. But there was nothing. Just a flat, quiet push towards something I didn't understand. I didn't go to work that day. I called in sick. I think my voice cracked on the phone, but I didn't care. I packed a small overnight bag, not because I thought I'd be staying at the Belmere, but because I didn't know what I was walking into and I needed to feel like I had some control. By 10:45 a.m., I was standing in the Belmere lobby again, this time alone. The same bored woman at the desk didn't even look up until I cleared my throat. I gave her my name. She typed something into the computer, eyes scanning. Then she said something that made my legs go numb. Welcome back, Mr. Everett. We already have your card printed. Room 410, check-in confirmed by Dr. Whitaker yesterday morning. I nearly dropped my wallet. He checked me in? How did he have access to my ID? My reservation? I was supposed to be a bystander in all this. The guy left in the wreckage, not the guy whose name was being used like a hotel alias. I almost told her to cancel the reservation. I almost walked out. But something deeper pulled at me. That small, persistent ember of obsession that starts to glow when the people you trust turn into strangers. I needed answers. I needed to see what was in that room. I took the elevator alone. No music. Just silence and the creak of the cables as the floor numbers ticked upward. 4th floor. I stepped into the hallway. It was eerily quiet, like the air had been sucked out of it. The carpets were wine-colored. Gold trim. Faint lemon-scented cleaner in the air. Room 410 was at the far end of the hall, right next to 409. I stared at that door for a moment. I wondered if they were in there now. If the beds were still unmade. If the sheets still smelled like her perfume. I tried not to picture it, but of course I did. Then I slipped the key into the lock for 410, and the light turned green. The room was dark. Curtains drawn. Same layout as the one I had booked months ago. I recognized the armchair, the sleek glass desk, the wall-mounted TV no one ever really watches. But something felt off. I turned on the light. That's when I saw it. On the bed, sitting perfectly centered against the white pillows, was a small, black box. Gift-wrapped. No card. No name. No note. I approached slowly, every nerve in my body buzzing. I sat down on the edge of the bed and just stared at it for a minute, hands trembling. I didn't want to open it, but I had to. Inside was a flash drive, and nothing else. No context. No explanation. Just a matte black USB stick lying in a bed of soft felt, like it was some kind of artifact. And in that moment, I knew. Whatever was on that drive wasn't meant for me to see, but I was going to watch it anyway. The ride home from the Belmere was a blur. I don't remember driving. I don't remember stopping at red lights or passing the bakery Marybeth used to drag me into every Saturday morning. I couldn't think about anything else except the weight of that flash drive in my coat pocket. How something so small could feel like holding a detonator. I kept checking to make sure it was still there, like it might vanish before I had the chance to see what was on it. When I got home, I didn't even take my shoes off. I walked straight past the untouched coffee on the counter, the envelope still lying face down like a crime scene, and went upstairs to the office. I locked the door behind me, even though no one else was home. I just needed to feel like the world was outside and I was safe inside, even if that was a lie. I plugged the flash drive into the side of my old laptop, the one I hadn't used since the pandemic. The screen flickered. The device chirped. One single file appeared. No folder. No name. Just a timestamp. vid_409_01. MOV. I stared at the screen for nearly 10 minutes, cursor hovering over the file, my throat dry, stomach in knots. I didn't want to watch it, but I knew I would. Because curiosity isn't just a weakness, it's a drug. And I was fully hooked. I double-clicked. The video opened in full screen immediately, no loading, no buffering, and the first thing I saw made my blood run cold. It was our room. Room 409. The night I was supposed to be there. I recognized the wallpaper, the pale blue curtains, the exact wrinkle in the comforter on the left side of the bed, the side I always took. The camera was positioned high, probably set up on the dresser. A wide angle, slightly tilted, grainy like it had been filmed with an old phone. There was no audio, just silence. Thick, empty, ominous silence. And then they walked in. Marybeth and Marcus, laughing, holding drinks. She was barefoot. He tossed his jacket on the chair like it was his home. She spun once, like a little girl in a dress, then collapsed onto the bed dramatically while he poured champagne from a bottle that had already been uncorked. I sat there, watching this version of my wife I didn't recognize, so comfortable, so light, so free. And it was like watching someone wear your skin while you're locked in a closet. But then something changed. About 5 minutes into the footage, Marybeth stood up and walked to the camera. She looked directly into it. Not by accident. She stared, leaned in slightly, and mouthed something. I rewound it 4 times before I finally caught the shape of the words. This isn't for you. That's when I paused the video. Just froze it there. Her face close to the lens, her eyes hollow, detached. I sat back in my chair, suddenly unsure of what I was watching. Was this staged? Was this a message? A trap? Why film it at all? I clicked play again. They talked, or at least moved like they were talking, but the silence of the recording made it eerie. Unnatural. Then Marcus picked up something from the nightstand and walked it over to her. I couldn't make it out clearly. It was small, black, square. He handed it to her like it was sacred. She opened it slowly, carefully, then nodded. The screen cut to black. Just like that. No fade out. No closing scene. Just darkness. I thought the video had ended, that it was over. But then, 20 seconds into the black screen, new footage began. Not the hotel this time. Our house. Our living room. Same camera angle. Same grainy style. But this time, the room was empty. For a while. And then, I walked in. I stared at the screen, confused. The video showed me. Same shirt. Same haircut. Same jacket I had just worn yesterday. But I didn't remember this. I had no memory of walking into the house and setting my keys down exactly the way the man on screen did. My doppelganger moved like me, rubbed his eyes like me, cracked his knuckles exactly the way I've done since middle school. And then he sat on the couch, staring forward, unmoving. It wasn't surveillance footage. It was something else, something more deliberate. This wasn't a recording of me. This was someone pretending to be me. I was watching myself, only it wasn't me. The camera zoomed slightly. The imposter leaned forward and mouthed something. I hit pause. I nearly fell out of my chair. Because even though the face was mine, the voice was silent, and the room was familiar. The words he mouthed weren't mine. They were his. You were never supposed to know. Same sentence he said at the restaurant. Word for word. Frame by frame. This had been recorded before that night. Which means, he planned all of it. I didn't finish watching the rest of the footage. Not because I couldn't, because I chose not to. After staring at my own face on that screen, watching a stranger wear my skin and speak with my ghost, something inside me quietly snapped. Not in the violent, table-flipping, vengeance-seeking way you see in movies. No, this was subtler, sadder, quieter, like a final breath after a long cry. I reached up, unplugged the flash drive, and dropped it in the bottom drawer of the desk without labeling it. I didn't smash it. I didn't set it on fire. I didn't need to. Because suddenly, I realized something that should have come to me long ago. I wasn't part of their story. They were part of mine. For months, maybe years, they'd been orchestrating this elaborate shadow play behind my back, weaving lies, hiding truths, looping me into a drama I never asked to be in. And all this time, I'd believed I was the side character, the oblivious husband, the one left behind. But that wasn't true. Not really. They didn't win. They just left. And sometimes, survival isn't about winning. It's about being the one still standing after the fire goes out. The next morning, I donated everything from our bedroom. Sheets, pillows, her favorite candles. Even the lamp she insisted was vintage mid-century, but looked like something out of a hospital. I emptied drawers, took down photos. I deleted her Spotify playlists from the shared account, one by one, until the silence felt clean again. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I packed a bag, got in the car, and drove west. No destination, just away, through hills and highways, past places we never visited together. I stopped at a small town in Colorado with a bookstore that smelled like dust and coffee, where no one knew my name. I stayed in a rental cabin with terrible Wi-Fi and a view of the mountains that looked hand-painted. I read. I wrote. I cooked myself simple meals. I forgot to set alarms. I started sleeping again. Deep, dreamless sleep. And eventually, one afternoon, while hiking a trail I couldn't pronounce, I looked up at the sky, this wide, stupidly beautiful sky, and I laughed. For real. The kind of laugh that feels like your lungs are finally working again. I wasn't angry anymore. Not at her. Not at him. Not even at myself. Because somewhere between the betrayal and the silence, I found something they never gave me, something they never could take away. Clarity. Clarity that I had loved fully, that I had trusted deeply, that I hadn't failed by being vulnerable. They had failed by mistaking that for weakness. And when you know that, really know that, you don't need revenge. You don't need closure served cold. You just need distance. And time. And sky. It's been 9 months since the night at the restaurant. I've moved cities. New job. New place. No shared closets. No hidden hotel keys. And last week, I met someone. Her name is Ren. She laughs with her whole body. She owns 3 mismatched teacups and says the moon controls her mood. We talk late into the night about everything and nothing. She doesn't ask about Mary Beth. I don't tell her. Not yet. Because this time, I'm not building love on top of secrets. This time, I'm starting from truth.